Welcome to the Pearls of Wisdom podcast, brought to you by Southern Jewelry News and Jewelry Store Marketers.
Welcome back to another edition of the Pearls of Wisdom podcast. I'm Chuck Kaler, columnist with Southern Jewelry News and Mid-America Jewelry News. And today we have Shelia Bays with us. So Shelia, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And there's a lot of reasons that I have you here, but for starters, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your involvement in the jewelry industry.
Sure. I live in Lexington, Kentucky. I started working in the jewelry business right out of high school when I was attending University of Kentucky. Mm-hmm. Worked for someone for almost 10 years. And then, of course, in your 20s, you think you can do anything. So I decided it was time for me to open up my own store. And this year we're celebrating 30 years.
You know, June 3rd of this year was my 30-year mark of owning my retail store.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of changes. Exactly.
Man,
we've hung on there.
I mean, remember when we used to have to use those green books with the little bitty lines and have to keep your accounting and all the columns and spaces and
exactly.
The phones where you had the buttons where you picked it up and had to push 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 line, and there was always the back line back there that only your family and friends knew about.
Absolutely.
A lot of y'all don't know that used to actually happen in this industry.
Exactly. So I've first generation. No one in my family is in the jewelry business. It was just something that
Same here.
I happened to fall into, and I love connecting with people and celebrating. Usually you're celebrating some of the most important events in their lives.
Yes, exactly. And I'm like you. I just kind of stumbled into it. I was a sophomore in high school, and it was just like, well, here I am. And, now that was 1978. So here it is. Years later, I'm still at it. So
still at it. We must love it.
Yeah.
Or it's like Hotel California. You could check in and you can never leave, right?
That's probably more the case than love it some days.
Exactly.
It's a tough environment a lot of times to operate in. But one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast today is you've got a little something that's going to make it a little easier for jewelers to do the wicked e-commerce.
Exactly. They say that necessity is the mother of invention. And I was so tired of paying to have e-commerce sites built and then not really have the bandwidth inside the store to make sure that we kept everything updated, products.
Oh, it's a full-time job.
It is a full-time job. And you need 1 or 2 people at a minimum. In my store is not a massive store to even maintain what we have. So the idea continued to kind of percolate. Started working on this idea almost 10 years ago. And of course, I'm not a developer. I didn't get in the jewelry business to write code and develop platforms, but I worked with this brilliant man who's with me today. And we developed a platform that literally can handle thousands of e-commerce sites for independent retailers. So what I mean by that is we will do e-commerce, and day one you will have inventory. So we use our vendor inventory because if anything, Chuck, COVID taught us that vendors sit on millions of dollars of inventory. And especially if they're B2B and not B2C, we want to help honor that tradition and keep them B2B. So we started incorporating vendor inventory into our platform. A couple of things we can do with that. Day one, obviously, when we set up a retail jeweler's e-commerce site, they can have inventory immediately.
Okay, now, before we get into that, let's step back one step.
Sure.
And a little transaction took place in your company. So
yes,
tell us about that. So,
I think that solutions have to come sometimes within our industry. Ours is such an unusual industry. A lot of people outside have no idea of all the intricacies in this. And
what's funny is, just on that same vein, whenever somebody comes in and they're going to buy a diamond, I just always tell them, I said, buying a diamond is like buying a car. You are never going to understand the process. So all you can do is find somebody you trust and know that we're going to take care of you, because you will never understand it.
Actually,
not in a million years.
That's great advice that you give, and I would agree. And we've seen companies come in from outside the industry thinking they're going to revolutionize our industry, and 2 years later they're not in business any longer.
Yeah.
So I knew it was important to get some big players involved in this if we really wanted to change kind of the vendor retailer consumer relationship. So I started talking to Jewelers Mutual, and Jewelers Mutual acquired my company Jim and Jewel 2 years ago.
Wow. And so now, because I'm a Jewelers Mutual client, you're a Jewelers Mutual client. So if you have a Jewelers Mutual policy for your store, how does that affect the transaction?
So this is the great thing I love about working with Jewelers Mutual, because I really do feel like they want to raise the tide of the industry as a whole, not just retailers, just not wholesalers. So what they have allowed me to do with Jim and Jewel, and they're subsidizing a great deal of this, obviously, is if you are a JM policyholder, you can get this e-commerce site for your retail store for $69 a month.
Okay.
And then
that's a whole lot less expensive than $3,000 and $4,000 a month that
it's
a lot
insane.
of us are having to pay for.
It's insane. $69 a month. And then the beautiful part about that is if you sell something, then we charge a 10% commission on that. So and that covers shipping and credit card processing and all of that. So you are only paying anything additional once you sell it. You're not having to pay, like you say, $1,000, $2,000, whatever a month it may be for e-commerce, and whether you sell something or not.
Okay, so let's just take a retailer out there who struggles with e-commerce. Let's pick one. Let's name him me.
Okay.
Since I'm terrible with e-commerce.
I love to help you with e-commerce. So yeah, talk to me.
All right. So I don't have the time to dedicate to it. I have learned that when I check my email every morning, it's, I like to think of it as I'm checking the traps. Like, all right, what did we do overnight? And it's always like from Etsy. It's like, hey, Etsy, discover these new vendors. And it's always people trying to sell me something. It's never people buying stuff. We get our share, but it's so I don't have it, and I would love to farm it out. So it's $69 a month. All right, let's assume I have almost none or very little e-commerce online presence.
Right.
So what do I get from day one?
So we set up, we'll discuss with you exactly what...
Wait, before we do that, how do they contact you?
You can contact me through Jewelers Mutual. We actually have Jim and Jewel on the Zing platform.
Okay, it's on the Zing platform.
It's on the Zing
Jim
platform.
And Jewel. Okay,
yes.
Jim and Jewel. Okay, that's so for everybody with Jewelers Mutual, and we're going to ask you how people that don't have Jewelers Mutual in a minute.
Sure, absolutely.
But if you're on Jewelers Mutual and you ship, you know what the Zing platform is, so it's called Jim and Jewel.
Jim and Jewel, and so you can reach out to me that way. I will give you my phone number and my email address, so you can always reach out that way as well. But they start the process that way. Once I can connect with them and they decide that this is something that they would like to do, then we pick out photos for templates. We work on all of the details. Chuck, I've even written about us for retail jewelers.
Okay.
I understand, we didn't start doing what we're doing because, we're great writers or necessarily great at e-commerce. So that's how the process starts. We actually just do the e-commerce URL as the store's name, whatever you have. Mine is sheilabays.com.
Okay.
And then we can load up all of the products that we have on our platform, unless it's a branded product that has exclusivity.
Sure.
Like we carry, as an example, John Hardy. So obviously we can't load up John Hardy on every e-commerce site. But the beautiful part about this is that then the retailer gets virtual inventory that they don't have in the store.
On day one.
On day one. I just sold.
And how does the end consumer, how would somebody find, my store is called Anthony Jewelers in Nashville, Tennessee.
Right.
So all of a sudden I now have an e-commerce site. So how would the consumer find my site? Is it something I tell my customers, or do y'all market that?
What we can do is help you put together some emails, and this is how I did it. It was trial and error, Chuck, seeing
Sure.
what works and what doesn't work. We've really started promoting our website on any advertising that we do. We're having a big 30-year celebration. You're going to have to go to the website to see details. We're giving away 30 carats of lab-grown diamonds for this. So, we incorporate our website into it a lot. But to begin with, we use Constant Contact. We put a great email together and we send it out. But I'll briefly tell you about my first sale on my website was to a man that lives 5 miles from my store, but had never shopped in my store. And so obviously the site goes up. It's like a couple of weeks later, and we get the sale for $1,750. And I look.
Good sale.
It was very good sale. And I look and I see the guy's name. He's not in our point of sale system. And so I send him a message and ask if I can call him. And we get on the phone, and I thank him for buying something. And I said, I noticed that you'd never bought anything before. Are you new to Lexington? And he said, no, I've lived here for many years. I prefer to shop local, but I only buy online. So here was a guy 5 miles from my store that had never been in, but because of our reputation, he felt very comfortable buying something online. And since then, he's bought several pieces. So it's stories like that, but we can help construct emails that you can send out to your customers, and then just get into trying to tie everything that you do and promote into your website.
Well, one of the hardest parts about getting started in e-commerce is the photography. You got to take something out of your case. You got to take a picture. You have to then try to describe it eloquently.
Right.
And then you have to price it, and then you have to upload it. So what you're saying is y'all have already done all of that with companies that are really good at e-commerce, and just basically you kind of attach my name to it. It's my own custom site. And if somebody just randomly in Australia, well, let's not do Australia. Let's just say a customer, say in Lexington, Kentucky, randomly comes onto my site and buys something, and I don't do anything. Somebody just happened to see it. It was sold, and
yes, you have. So how it's set up is you have your own dashboard. Okay. So you'll get an email saying, Mr. Joe Smith has purchased this item, and at the time that
if it's Joe Smith, is it an 18-karat Cuban link?
Cuban link, yeah, exactly. That they need shipped to Nigeria right away.
Exactly.
That is so funny because that happens so often.
We'll name this person Peter McDonald.
Exactly, exactly. So you get this notification in your email. You can sign into your portal, see everything that's going on. But at the same time, the vendor's getting an email as well stating that this item has been sold, Shelia Bay's Jewelers. The item can be shipped to the store, or the item can be shipped to the consumer.
So basically, just the manufacturer gets a notification, this is sold, the money's changed hands, it's a done deal. Manufacturer ships it out either to your store or to your customer. And
exactly.
And literally that happened at 3:00 in the morning when I was soundly wide awake, wondering why it's 3:00 in the morning and
why am I awake?
Why am I awake at 3:00?
We wanted this experience to be good for the end consumer, so it doesn't matter if they buy 3 items from 3 different manufacturers. It's one universal checkout cart, and they'll be notified that the items will arrive separately. So it's just a great way. What's really worked for us, Chuck, is we've had people that have lived in Lexington that have moved outside of Lexington, but that still you have that relationship with. We had 2 sales this past year, almost $20,000 each to physicians who used to live in Lexington and have moved outside, and they'll pick up the phone and call me and say, okay, what do you have? And we can go through the website together and pick things out.
Now, but you can also, to your site, you can upload your actual inventory.
100%. And that's very important part of it, because most retail jewelers, when you get an item in and you're taking a picture, they're really horrible photos. So we can help them take photos. We have actually Jewelers Mutual set up a whole photography studio, and we've been doing that. We've actually been doing a lot of vendor inventory right now, and we've done some retailer inventory as well. You can ship it there. But we're trying to look at some alternatives also. Like we discussed a couple of products that are out on the market that actually have AI involved with them that help with product descriptions and all of that. We will help do all of that. This is
And basically it's $69 a month to take all of this off the retailer's hands. And so they can find this. They go to the Zing platform. All right, so if somebody's not a Jewelers Mutual client,
you can still go Zing platform, still do it. Instead of it being $69 a month, it's $99 a month. So there's the difference in the price, but you get all of the same benefits and services that go along with that.
all right, well, everybody go to the Zing platform and look for...
Jim and Jewel.
All right, well, Shelia Bays from Lexington, Kentucky, thank you for coming and talking to us about it, and look forward to following that product. And thanks for watching this episode of Pearls of Wisdom. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to the Pearls of Wisdom Jewelry Podcast. For more information about the show, please visit southernjewelrynews.com/podcast, brought to you by Southern Jewelry News and Jewelry Store Marketers. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you can catch the next show. See you then.